No one could have predicted what would unfold that day at the Meet the Press studio in Washington, D.C. The atmosphere was razor-tight with anticipation as Karoline Leavitt, the youngest White House press secretary in U.S. history, walked onto the stage. At just 27, armed with sharp wit and fierce loyalty to President Donald Trump, Leavitt was not just prepared, she was primed for battle. Across from her sat Kristen Welker, NBC's seasoned journalist. The interview was billed as the clash of the year, and it did not disappoint. As the studio lights blazed and cameras rolled, Welker opened with a carefully veiled jab. "Karoline, welcome. As the youngest press secretary working for a president as controversial as Donald Trump, how do you handle the pressure?" Leavitt smiled, composed but unyielding. "Pressure, Kristen, is just fuel. I'm here to represent the American people who chose President Trump to put them first, despite media spin designed to distort reality." The exchange escalated when Welker questioned a recent Trump-hosted dinner with investors linked to his cryptocurrency. She pressed hard on transparency and conflict of interest. Leavitt's response cut through the tension like a blade. "Asking for a private dinner guest list is like asking you to publish who came to your birthday party, Kristen. Do you make that list public?" The audience chuckled. Welker's composure cracked, slightly. Her fingers tapped the desk. "This isn't a birthday party," she countered. "The public deserves to know who influences the president." Leavitt didn't blink. "Why doesn't NBC report on the millions of jobs Trump created? Or how he's saving Americans billions by holding China accountable? Instead you chase unverified stories. If you want transparency, start in your own newsroom." Applause broke out. The tone shifted further as Welker cited a Supreme Court order involving a deported man. Her goal was clear: paint the Trump administration as defiant of the judiciary. Leavitt's reply was surgical. President Trump isn't ignoring the law. He's navigating the chaos left by previous administrations. El Salvador is a sovereign nation. We can't force their hand, just like NBC can't force people to believe half-baked stories. More applause. Welker, now clearly off balance, launched one final desperate volley: Trump's controversial suggestion about sending domestic criminals to foreign prisons. Leavitt didn't flinch. That was a bold idea meant to address overcrowding, not a constitutional violation. Every Trump policy adheres to the law and prioritizes American safety. Why not ask why past leaders allowed our justice system to collapse in the first place? The studio exploded with applause. Welker's grip on her stack of papers tightened. Her voice wavered. But Leavitt sat back, calm and commanding, like a chess master who already saw checkmate 5 moves ahead. Karoline Leavitt had not only deflected Kristen Welker's attack, she had transformed it into a powerful defense of Donald Trump and a searing critique of institutional failure. Welker, momentarily thrown off balance by the sudden pivot, tried to regain control. "Miss Leavitt," she said, voice rising, "this idea isn't just innovative as you call it. Legal experts say sending American citizens to foreign prisons would violate the 8th Amendment, which prohibits cruel and unusual punishment. How can you justify a policy so widely seen as unconstitutional?" Her tone was sharp, but her eyes betrayed unease. Across from her, Leavitt remained unshakably composed. She leaned forward, her gaze piercing straight through Welker. "Kristen, I think you're misinterpreting President Trump's intent, and I'd be happy to clarify," she said, her voice low but charged with authority. "No American citizen would be sent anywhere without full due process. President Trump is opening a national discussion about justice reform, not dictating policy. He's focused on protecting Americans from violent crime. And if that means learning from countries like El Salvador, where tough measures have slashed crime rates, that's worth considering." He paused, then struck. "But let me ask you this. Why doesn't NBC ever report that Trump's policies reduced crime in major U.S. cities by 25% last year? Why focus only on what's controversial while ignoring real results?" Leavitt's words were a tidal wave, crashing through Welker's carefully constructed framing. The audience erupted again, applause filling the room. Welker, now visibly rattled, tried to steady herself. Her fists clenched. Her voice trembled as she tried to push forward. "Miss Leavitt, the press's role is to question policies that impact citizens' rights. If President Trump is serious about reform, why not release specific plans instead of making shocking proposals? The public needs clarity, not vague statements. But the audience sensed the shift, her faltering tone, the subtle touches to her hair, a rare nervous habit. Leavitt didn't let up. Clarity, yes. But fairness too, she said, her voice suddenly sharp, slicing through Welker's line of questioning. President Trump has made it clear he's committed to reform. He's consulting top legal minds. But let's be honest. Americans are tired of distorted stories designed to inflame rather than inform. They want safe streets. They want a future where their kids aren't growing up surrounded by crime. Leavitt leaned in. If NBC truly wanted to serve the public, you'd report on how Trump cut regulations, lowered costs, and reignited economic growth. But instead you chase sensationalism. That's not journalism, Kristen. That's performance. The applause roared again. Welker sat motionless, her lips pressed tight, her hands trembling as they clutched the desk. Her face was pale, her eyes flickering between panic and indignation. Opposite her, Leavitt radiated lethal calm, her eyes locked onto Welker's, a faint smile on her lips like a silent declaration of war. The confrontation had reached its apex. But Welker wasn't finished. Summoning her last reserve of composure, she fired off another question. Miss Leavitt, she said, her voice trembling but striving for resolve, let's turn to another issue. President Trump recently criticized the Federal Reserve and Chairman Jerome Powell, even suggesting he might interfere with monetary policy. Economists warn that could destabilize global markets. Can you explain this confrontational approach and how the administration ensures the U.S. economy remains stable? It was a lifeline, an attempt to pivot, to shift terrain. But her pleading eyes betrayed desperation. Leavitt didn't blink. Her voice rang out, low, certain, rallying. Kristen, thank you. Because this goes to the heart of what Americans care about. Economic security. President Trump isn't criticizing the Fed out of ego. He's demanding it serve the people. Under previous administrations, inflation soared. Americans were crushed by rising prices. Trump is asking for accountability, for bold action. She sat up straighter, the force of her conviction drawing the audience in. He's not trying to control the federal. He's urging it to do its job. But again I ask, why doesn't NBC report on the 15% surge in the stock market since Trump took office? Or how his policies are lowering living costs for working families? Are those stories not exciting enough for your newsroom? The audience erupted. Applause and cheers thundered like a tidal wave. Leavitt had flipped the question, seized the moment, and driven it straight back at the institution in front of her. Welker, stripped of composure, stood up abruptly, pointing at Leavitt. Miss Leavitt, you can't just keep attacking the media to dodge questions. The public deserves direct answers. Is President Trump risking the economy by meddling with an independent institution? Her voice was shrill, nearly out of control. The audience began murmuring. Some shook their heads, sensing the unraveling. Leavitt didn't flinch. Kristen, I'm not dodging anything, she said, her voice now cold steel. I'm giving the public the truth. President Trump isn't meddling, he's prioritizing Americans. He's saying the Fed should protect their wallets, not play politics. Her tone sharpened. And if you really want to inform the public, stop twisting his words into panic-inducing headlines. Talk about his middle-class tax cuts. Talk about how he's building an economy workers can be proud of. But you don't. Because those stories don't fit your script. It was a kill shot. The audience rose to their feet. Applause roared once again. Welker stood frozen, trembling. Her eyes shimmered, a mixture of fury and humiliation. I can't continue an interview where all you do is attack, she shouted, voice cracking. In a burst of emotion, she tore off her earpiece and slammed it onto the desk. We're done here.